several massive and deadly wildfires tear through Northern California.
What we experienced was horrifying.
The scandal swirling around Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein has moved from the tabloids to the political pages.
There are life and death issues which Hillary Clinton talks about.
That's a dodge, okay? I mean, let's be real.
NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell finally responded to the national anthem controversy. This is about low ratings and revenues walking out the door. This isn't about principle.
Good morning. That's just a little hint for you. We got a lot coming up this morning for you. You are watching Fox and Friends First on this Wednesday morning. It is 4 a.m. here on the East Coast. I'm Heather Childers. Let's get to our top story for you at this hour. In just a few hours, President Trump will hit the road to push his new tax reform plan. So what can we expect? Joining us now from Washington, D.C. with some brand new details for us this morning is Griff Jenkins. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Heather, and go ahead and cue up Willie Nelson's On the Road again, because the president's going to make his third trip since becoming president to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania today, delivering remarks this afternoon at an Air National Guard hangar to about 1,000 Pennsylvania workers. Many of them will be truckers, a group the president considers to be the lifeblood of our economy. We're told by senior administration officials to expect the president to speak of personal stories of those who stand to benefit from this tax reform plan. Here's what the president had to say looking ahead to today's speech.
People want to see tax cuts, they want to see major reductions in their taxes, and they want to see tax reform, and that's what we're doing.
And the president is not giving up on health care, planning to use the power of his pen to take action, expected to sign a measure this week that would allow Americans to buy health care across state lines, saying that it would cost the country nothing to do it. This, as many voters are becoming very weary of inaction in Washington. In the wake of the GOP's repeated failures to repeal and replace Obamacare, Senator Lindsey Graham noted the high stakes for his party if Congress can't deliver on the president's agenda.
If the Republicans don't deliver on tax reform and repealing and replacing Obamacare and keeping America safe, then we're going to lose.
And finally, we have to mention that folks here in Washington are watching closely, Heather, to see if that truce, that Twitter feud between the president and Tennessee Senator Bob Corker gets quelled because, of course, when they begin to vote on tax reform, it will be under the rules that need only 50 votes. So you can only spare 2 Republican votes to be lost, and you don't want to do it over these personal Twitter insults. And lastly, we might even hear something about that, as well as the tax reform and health care with the president's interview with Sean Hannity, which will occur sometime around that Harrisburg speech today.
Yeah, I think that's supposed to be 9 p.m. tonight. That will be on Hannity. Thank you so much, Griff. Appreciate it. You're right. Every vote counts. Well, now let's turn to another story, entirely different one. The Harvey Weinstein scandal. TMZ reporting that Harvey boarded a private jet overnight, headed to a sex rehab center in Europe. And after 5 days of silence, Hillary Clinton finally breaking her silence, saying, quote, "I was shocked and appalled by the revelations about Harvey Weinstein. The behavior described by women coming forward cannot be tolerated." That from Hillary Clinton. Well, Weinstein, a friend and a donor to Clinton, counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, tweeting this: "It took Hillary about 5 minutes to blame NRA for Madman's rampage, but 5 days to kind of blame Harvey Weinstein for his sexual assaults." Meanwhile, Weinstein's wife, Georgina Chapman, announcing that she's leaving him finally after hours after a bombshell report detailed some accusations from 3 other women who say that he raped them. And New Yorker magazine obtaining an audio recording of a 2015 sting operation involving Weinstein and a model. You have to hear this. We have to warn you, though, it is disturbing.
It's just that I don't feel comfortable.
Honey, don't have a fight with me on the phone. Please, I'm not going to do anything. I swear, my children. Please come in. On everything. I'm a famous guy.
I'm feeling very uncomfortable right now.
Please come in now. And 1 minute. And if you want to leave, when the guy comes with my jacket,
yesterday you touched my wrist.
Oh, please, I'm sorry. Just come on. I'm used to that. Come on.
Are you used to that?
Yes, come in.
No, but I'm not used to that.
I won't do it again. Come on. Sit here. Sit here for a minute, please.
I mean, that just makes you shake your head. I'm used to that. Well, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office decided not to press charges in that case. Well, speaking of Hillary Clinton, she still has not said that she will give Weinstein's money back. Former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich had this to say about the double standard from the left and Hollywood.
If Hillary'd won, this would still not be a story, because they would have smothered it, because it so directly brings back up Bill and Hillary. And so in that sense, this is a story that could only emerge when you had somebody new in the White House. The democratization of media. There are too many small people out there to bribe. And so all of a sudden somebody comes along and says,
Twitter, Facebook.
I'm willing to report this, and you can't do anything to me. I think what's interesting is this is part of an ongoing process. You're going to see Hollywood now, I think, come apart at the seams, just as you're seeing Silicon Valley come apart at the seams, because all of a sudden it becomes inappropriate for economic power to coerce and blackmail and bribe people that it has been exploiting.
The Hollywood A-listers Gwyneth Paltrow and Angelina Jolie, they have added their names to a list of Weinstein's accusers. Much more to come on that, I'm sure. Well, as the NFL ratings tank, and with some tax breaks on the line, Roger Goodell seems to be rediscovering his patriotism. Speaking of economics involved in scandals, the league's commissioner now telling teams and players to stand during the national anthem. But is it too little too late? Jackie Ibanez joins us now with that. So is this all about economics and a big loss, potential loss in money?
Well, I like how you say it's about rediscovering his patriotism. All right, this story's got a lot of people talking this morning. It's only 4 o'clock here on the East Coast. NFL ratings down 8%, Heather. And this morning, Monday Night Football numbers are in, and ESPN plummeting to a season low in Week 5. Now, Roger Goodell is hoping to finally move past the controversy with the uniform approach by all teams. And it's pretty simple. Stand. In the letter to team execs, Goodell writing this: like many of our fans, we believe that everyone should stand for the national anthem. It is an important moment in our game. We want to honor our flag and our country, and our fans expect that of us. The statement coming hours after the president raised the stakes, calling for a change that could deal the league a financial blow. Quote, why is the NFL getting massive tax breaks while at the same time disrespecting our anthem, flag, and country? Change the tax law. The NFL's central office gave up its tax-exempt status 2 years ago. 13 teams have gotten more than $1 billion in federal subsidies since 2000 to build or renovate stadiums.
If this industry is going to use money from American taxpayers to build the very fields they play on, is it really too much to ask that they show respect for the American flag at the beginning of the game?
Now, the issue will be discussed during the NFL's regularly scheduled fall meetings starting next week. Yeah. Wow.
I mean, it's interesting. You've got the Harvey Weinstein scandal and more actors and actresses coming out on that, talking about how, you know, it's not beneficial to the economics of their business now to not say anything. And then it's kind of very similar with what's going on with the NFL. Economically, it would be advisable for Roger Goodell to finally come out here and do this.
Well, and when it comes down to money, you know, money definitely speaks.
And that's so unfortunate,
isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
But that is the way that it seems to be working, and all these stories seem to kind of coincide with each other. But we're on Facebook Live currently right now. That's why I'm holding this silly phone, and we're going to be doing it all throughout the 4 a.m. So let us know. We'll take your comments live on the air, and we'll kind of talk back and forth about this, Heather.
So if you ever see Jackie, beware. She'll have her phone doing something.
More beware for you, Heather, right? I'm all over.
Yeah. So get online. Tell us, do you think that it is too little, too late? And we will share some of your responses later in the show. Thank you, Jackie. Well, we have this just in the meantime. MGM Resorts, which owns the Mandalay Bay Hotel, says that the report that Stephen Paddock shot a hotel security guard before opening fire in Las Vegas may not be true. The company only saying this, quote, what is currently being expressed may not be accurate. Meanwhile, we are learning that Paddock may have used the hotel's freight elevator days before he opened fire, leaving 58 people dead. Paddock also reportedly used specific bullets designed to actually ignite and then cause an explosion when he shot at fuel tanks. So a lot of questions there. And now to a Fox News exclusive for you. Just days before President Trump is expected to decertify the Iran nuclear deal, it appears that the country's weapons program is fully operational. That's a quote. And we obtained a report from the National Council of Resistance of Iran that shows at least 4 nuclear development sites have secretly been constructed and used to avoid international inspectors. The president has called the Obama-era agreement the worst deal ever. So we'll see what happens there. And a big win for the Trump administration and its controversial travel ban to tell you about. The Supreme Court throwing out the original challenge after a new executive order was signed just last month. The expanded ban, we've told you, it includes 8 countries, and it's set to go into effect next week. Challengers have already renewed their claims in lower courts. And for the first time in nearly 30 years, the U.S. men's soccer team will not hit the field for next year's World Cup. People had a lot to say about this online last night. The 28th ranked Americans losing to 99th ranked Trinidad 2-1, ending their streak of 7 straight appearances at the Global Sports Showcase. Some fans not happy with that loss. Well, coming up, the violence started with the anti-police protest in Ferguson, and now the FBI is naming black extremists as the newest terror threat. Our next guest, Aaron Cohen, hunted and captured terrorists for a living, and he says the danger is very real. And social media censors are at it again, this time Facebook banning a song about protecting the Second Amendment. Stay with us. Well, it could be one of the worst natural disasters in California history. At this hour, massive wildfires leaving 17 people dead and at least 200 people missing. Let's get right to Adam Housley. He is live from his hometown of Napa. Adam, tell us what is the very latest this morning. I was following you on Twitter last night and through the afternoon, and this is really impacting your hometown.
Yeah, in fact, my home area up here in the wine country, it's basically Napa, Sonoma, and Solano counties are all side by side. And I have family and homes in all 3. Right now, we're actually in Solano County. So if you're looking at a map, you basically of north of San Francisco, it goes Sonoma, Napa, Solano. That big fire in Napa that burned through the country club that threatened my family's home jumped the hill last night and into Solano County. The video we're getting from up here continues to be dramatic as the conditions continue to be tough. In fact, right now I'm told the 2 most difficult fires that they're looking at is the one near Sonoma, where they've increased evacuations there. It's maybe 20 miles from where I'm standing. And also here in Solano County, where the fire last night when the wind kicked up, at one point when I was on the hillside, in fact, I have some video I can show you that I shot last night right before sundown, where the fire and the wind picked up. At one point, the fire jumped 3/4 of a mile as we were standing there talking to fire crews from Sassoon, California, which is a little town here in Solano County. You can see the winds picked up. Now, back here live this morning, the wind, at least where I'm standing, has died down a bit. I'm told in Sonoma, 20 miles to my west, the winds have not died down as much, and that's why they have some new evacuations in the Boys Hot Springs area. Behind me, though, take a look at this. This is stuff that you're going to see, the active flames. And what's wrong with this, besides it being on fire, is while it's laying down, meaning you're not seeing it spike up into the sky, all it takes is a little bit of wind, and all of a sudden you will see these flames literally stoke sometimes 20 to 30 feet into the air. That's when the embers blow to other hillsides. That's when the fire continues to expand. Right now, we're told that these fires are 0% contained. So you can tell, guys, this is the active fire that continues to burn just here. Now imagine this same type of fire burning in at least 4 other locations just in the North Bay area. Back to you in New York.
It's really awful. And I know amongst those 17 deaths, there was a couple, 198 years old, the 2 of them. They just celebrated their 75th wedding anniversary. Just horrible stories to hear. Thank you so much, Adam. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah,
No
their
problem.
family had said the only thing worse is if one had survived the other. Well, in an explosive new report, the FBI citing black extremists as a new domestic terror threat. It all started with the 2014 shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. And the report says this is a quote. The FBI assesses it is very likely black identity extremists, known as BIE, perceptions of police brutality against African Americans spurred an increase in premeditated retaliatory lethal violence against law enforcement and will very likely serve as justification for such violence. Here to weigh in on that, Aaron Cohen. He's a former member of Israel's Special Operations Counterterrorist Unit and founder of CHRİS, that's the manufacturer of law enforcement products for terrorism readiness. So you know whereof you speak. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
So compare this for us on the level of concern that we should have on this based on other terrorist things that are going on.
Well, look, when the FBI, which is a top-tier investigating agency, puts out an assessment, the threat needs to be taken seriously. The FBI has no reason to sugarcoat an assessment. The purpose of putting out a threat assessment is to be able to warn law enforcement and let the public know that they think that identity or this particular or these growing or budding black identity extremist groups are verifiable terrorist threats. Here's what I thought was interesting. This report, which was leaked, was actually filed as a counter-terror report. And I find that very interesting. So if the FBI is classifying these identity extreme groups or black identity extreme groups and putting them in the counter-terror box, well, that sends a very clear message to me that they're looking at this as a potential domestic terror threat. Yeah. And that has to be investigated as a terror threat. The phones need to be listened to, and the emails need to be looked at, and law enforcement needs to be able to have the tools to be able to protect themselves against a potential budding terror threat.
As you were talking about it, we were showing some video that we can bring up again of the different attacks that have happened since 2014. 6 targeted attacks specifically that are seen to be in retaliation for perceived past brutality or police brutality incidents. This includes the one in Dallas, Texas. That was in 2016. A gunman ambush shot 11 officers. That's the worst one that we've experienced. And in 2014, if you remember, we had the hatchet-yielding man. He attacked 4 NYPD officers. And then we had also another incident that happened in Indianapolis, Indiana. 2 different police stations involved in that one. And then another one that happened in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But you had said that you think that this is the highest level of threat.
Yeah, I do think it's the highest level of threat because, you know, this isn't, you know, we're just coming through security puberty here with this terrorism thing. I mean, the U.S. Israel's been dealing with this for 60 years. Here in the United States, we're literally a 14-year-old child going through security puberty. And the reason why is because terror to us is relatively new as it pertains to ISIS and Al-Qaeda and the recent international threats. What's really difficult to manage about this threat is that it's internal. What we have here essentially is a report that was leaked that I don't believe the FBI would even come close to putting out during the Obama administration for political reasons. And now that the president, now that Trump is in the White House and surrounds himself with very strong security, people and has a very strong tone in terms of his national security. This is a real national security threat. Officer survival is the key to daily policing.
You're right. Yeah. Good way to end it. Appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much. And we'll be right back. Stay with us.
The American people rose up. They are sick and tired of the liberal elites and the liberal media telling them what they're going to listen to and what is going to be pushed forward and broadcast and what is not. And in this example, it was Twitter. And they decided that to talk about pro-life, pro-woman, pro-baby was inflammatory and would evoke a negative response. And they said if I chose to leave that wording out, they would allow it to serve. So they doubled down on censoring me. So I doubled down on standing for life.
Yes, she did. Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn last night on The Story discussing Twitter's decision to pull ads from her campaign video. And now, after intense backlash from Twitter, they've reversed their decision. Here with more from Fox News Headlines 24/7 is Carly Shimkus. So we told everybody about this yesterday, but now Twitter said, okay, never mind, we're not going to do it.
Twitter doing a complete 180. So a little bit of backstory. On Monday, Twitter decided to ban her Senate campaign ads because in them she used a phrase. She said that she worked to stop the sale of, quote, baby body parts, referring to her time working to investigate Planned Parenthood. Well, this story went viral. We talked about it yesterday, as did a lot of other shows. Twitter decided to reverse their decision. Here's a statement they released. They said, after reconsidering the ad in the context of the entire message, we believe there is room to refine our policies around these issues. So this is a major victory for her and free speech in general. And a lot of her fans are really happy about this, or her supporters rather. And Joy and Shai says he called it a victory for free speech. speech. Scott says, make America great again, beat back censorship. And JC says, thank you for standing for your beliefs. Twitter has no right to censor. So she's actually going to be on Fox and Friends later on this morning to talk about it. So we'll get a little bit more information.
Not quite the response that Twitter thought they were going to get. They pulled the ad because they thought they'd get a bad response from that, but it was the reverse.
Yes,
that
exactly.
Happens.
Yeah, and you can see why. And you know what? Sort of a similar story happening over on Facebook, according to a country singer whose name is Dustin Collins. He says that he tried to promote his song about being a proud gun owner on Facebook by taking out some Facebook ads that were banned. Facebook did not want him to have these ads promoting his song. Here's a little bit of that song. I'm not exactly 100% sure what it means, but essentially he's not getting his ad on Facebook. And a lot of people, free speech advocates and his fans, are very upset about this, including Darlene, who says, we love this song, don't see why people have problems with it. I mean, it only speaks the truth. Richard also says free speech is only free when you agree with the agenda.
Yeah,
so
I think that says it. That's what's happened right here.
Well, he says that, you know, he created a song about the Second Amendment, and now he's going to have to create a song about the First Amendment.
Right. He sure is. Yeah. And in terms of saying it has something to do with profanity, you know, you got a lot of songs that you're going to have to deal with.
A single curse word in this song.
Yeah. So, all right. Thank you so much, Carly.
Thanks so
Appreciate
much.
it. Let us know what you think, as usual, on that as well. Well, the time now is about 28 minutes after the top of the hour. Coming up, we stand for the national anthem. Looking forward to talking to this guy. He's a 77-year-old farmer sending a strong message to kneeling football players. Look at that. And NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell finally agreeing that players should stand. But is it too little too late? Chat right now with our Jackie Ibanez on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Hey, Jackie. Welcome back. You're watching Fox and Friends First. A Fox News alert for you at this hour. President Trump could be heading to South Korea. Media there is reporting that White House officials are scouting possible sites for a visit, including the demilitarized zone at the border. Former Green Beret and Fox News contributor Michael Waltz says that a visit would send a very strong message.
It sends a message to the 30,000 troops that we have in South Korea whose lives are sitting over there on the line. Their commander-in-chief is leading. He's leading from the front, and that he's no longer going to accept the same old that we've had for the last 30 years.
The president also meeting with his top generals just hours before the U.S. military flew Air Force bombers for the first time at night over the Korean Peninsula. This was in a drill alongside South Korean and Japanese planes. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau set to meet with President Trump just hours from now. NAFTA's future is on the line amid some concerns that it may collapse. Canadian officials say that Trudeau will use his trip to Washington to reinforce his stance on how Americans benefit from the deal. The two-day visit comes at the beginning of the fourth round of NAFTA renegotiations. And happening right now, the Supreme Court debating a case that will decide how and if police officers should be shielded from liability. And this is happening after 16 partygoers, 16, were cleared of trespassing charges back in 2008. Later, they sued several D.C. officers. The D.C. Circuit ruling that the officers did not have probable cause for entry and they were not entitled to immunity from liability. Critics worry, though, that ruling will create a Ferguson effect, leaving officers hesitant to enforce the law. To Utah now. Do you remember this video of a Utah cop handcuffing a nurse inside a hospital? It was pretty dramatic. The officer wanted her to draw blood from an unconscious patient who was behind the wheel when he crashed into an off-duty officer. She refused. Listen.
I have bad administration on the way.
Well, the Salt Lake City Police Department has now fired that detective. His commander was demoted 2 ranks. Well, President Trump welcoming back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, the Pittsburgh Penguins, to the White House.
You are true champions and incredible patriots. If Jenny Malkin, where's his Jenny? Looks like he's a basketball player. Big guy, strong, tough.
Big guy. President Trump's pretty tall, too. Penguins coach Mike Sullivan defending the decision to visit the White House, saying that it was about respect, not politics.
our acceptance of the invitation to the White House was not political, and that it's simply a celebration of this group of players winning a championship, and to honor the office of the president.
Well, the Penguins are the 4th championship team to visit President Trump at the White House so far this year. Really something when you have to defend a decision to go to the White House. Well, while you were sleeping, Catalonia signing a declaration of independence from Spain, declaring itself as a sovereign state. But there's one hitch. Kitty Logan joins us now live from London to explain. Good morning, Kitty.
Good morning, Heather. Well, yes, you're right. There was a signed declaration, but the Catalan leadership pulled back from the brink last night, saying it would suspend implementing that independence declaration for several weeks to allow for talks with the Spanish government. Now, we saw last night that speech in the Catalan parliament, and there is relief in Spain that Catalonia hasn't tried to implement independence against the wishes of Madrid. There was anticipation that Catalonia would announce the start of the independence protests following that referendum, which was held on October 1st. The decision to hold off for now follows economic and political pressure, not just from the Spanish government, but also from around Europe. But as you say, Catalan leaders did sign a document claiming full sovereignty, even though it was not clear if this is legally binding or if and when it would become reality. So, of course, supporters of independence for Catalonia were left disappointed. They were hoping for an official announcement that would go ahead following an overwhelming vote in favour of separation from Spain at that referendum. But the Spanish government has not recognised the vote and has declared it illegal. Now, it's not clear when those negotiations with Catalonia will start and if they will have any success in resolving this crisis. But the Spanish government is holding an emergency cabinet meeting today to discuss the ongoing political crisis. Heather.
Okay, I know that you'll keep us updated, Kitty. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. Well, headed back home now, one farmer is making sure that everyone knows his opinion on the NFL protests. Gene Hansen from North Dakota used his tractor to put a message in one of his fields. You can see it there. It says, "We stand for the national anthem," in big, bold letters. And it has gone viral. Of course, even the president taking notice. You see his tweet right there. He's appreciative of it. And Gene joins us now via Skype from North Dakota to tell us more about the reaction he is getting. Gene, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. You know, you're a hero to a lot of people right now because of what you did.
I guess to some, maybe some not, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you've done this before with other messages. How exactly do you go about doing it?
Yeah, I've done several over the years. You know, some of them like Drain the Swamp, GOP Get Your Act Together, Thank You Veterans, a lot of things like that.
Uh-huh. And you take your tractor, is that how you do? You take your tractor through the field, but you don't use a GPS or anything?
No, I just have an old 135 Massey, open seat with no cab, no GPS, of course, with a 3-point disc on the back, and I go out in a bean field, and I usually count the number of rows or the lengths and the width of the letter. I just kind of estimate.
You count the number of rows manually.
Yeah, each letter is approximately 50 by 125 feet, so it gets pretty big.
Uh-huh. And then you go up in your plane and you take a picture.
I have a home-built plane, yes, and I go up, take a picture, and if it works out, I put it on Facebook, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it goes viral.
People love it. I mean, and so are you a big football fan with the NFL? What do you think about what's going on?
I'm not a great football fan, but I do watch it once in a while, yes.
Yeah, but you don't agree with the kneeling.
I certainly don't deal with the, agree with the NFL and their kneeling for the anthem, no.
Yeah. Why do you think they should stand?
Well, you know, I think it's not because of black, white, or brown, or Republican, or Democrat. It's all about honoring the flag and the many men and women that died for our country. Yeah. They should be honored for that.
You're right, and a lot of people agree with you. I was so excited to talk to you this morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it.
Nice to be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job. Well, coming up, President Trump, he came under fire when he said this.
And our real unemployment is anywhere from 18 to 20%. Don't believe the 5.6. Don't believe it. That's right.
Well, the economist who actually inspired that comment is right here, and he's up next. He will explain how the president's new tax plan will put more money in your pocket. President Trump is taking his tax plan to Pennsylvania today in his push to kickstart the economy. It's an issue that he's been working on since day one.
And our real unemployment is anywhere from 18 to 20%. Don't believe the 5.6. Don't believe it. That's right. A lot of people up there can't get jobs. They can't get jobs because there are no jobs.
Well, that was then. This is now. The economist who inspired that comment when President Trump announced his run for office joins us this morning to break down the president's tax plan and explain how it will put Americans back to work. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Nice to be with you.
So when we say that was then, that was 2014 that you wrote an op-ed that used that number. Now we're here at 2017. What do you think the real unemployment situation looks like?
Well, it's easily 8 or 9%. You know, 1 out of 20 Americans, adults, are on Social Security disability. That was basically a place where the Obama administration parked people because it couldn't create jobs for them.
So the president is going to be in Pennsylvania specifically selling his plan. We got some of the points initially that he's going to talk about. Why do you think Pennsylvania, and how will it benefit them there specifically?
Well, the section of Pennsylvania that he's going to is a manufacturing area, or was a manufacturing area. It's been hard hit by globalization. And, you know, this plan is going to lower corporate taxes by about 20%. Our corporate taxes are terribly high, even higher than, say, Sweden. And so this will make companies more competitive, but more importantly, it'll make Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, a more competitive place to locate jobs. And this should boost wages somewhat and create more jobs in places where there just aren't any. So it's a good thing.
It's good news for those folks, and they need to hear it, and it needs to work. You were talking about the corporate tax rate, but also a lower tax rate for the middle class. Also, it's going to make taxes simpler, we're told.
Well, you know, there's nothing more frightening to ordinary people than to sit down at their computer with, you know, QuickTax or something or other and try to do their own personal income taxes because the code is so complex. For most Americans, this proposed legislation takes that off the table. By doubling the standard deduction, taxes are going to be dumb simple for most people, including people like me. And that's great. We don't need to have a code so complex that it puts fear into the hearts of Americans. The government is not supposed to do that.
I have a feeling, though, that you could probably file if it was really, really, really complicated. I think you know your stuff, which is why we have you on this morning. So overall, you think, what is the best selling point to Americans, and what's the best part of this plan will get them back working?
Well, clearly lowering the cost of capital, making it easier for ordinary entrepreneurs to start a business, simplifying the tax code so April 15th is not such a horror. And look, they're going to have more money in their pockets, and who doesn't want that? If you're against the tax code, you're against individual initiative, free enterprise, frankly, the American way. And that's why the Clinton administration in waiting, the Tax Policy Institute, is making up so much nonsense about this tax cut. This is a big benefit to ordinary working Americans, and any congressman that votes against it really ought to be exiled.
All right. Wow. Strong words there. We appreciate it, Peter. Thank you so much for joining us. Come back for sure.
Take care.
Thank you. Well, coming up, a school district under fire this morning. Kids got a quiz, and one of the multiple choice answers, it was shoot at President Trump. We're not kidding. And an American flag representing a mother's memory of her veteran son stolen right off of her front porch. Her heartbreaking message to those criminals up next.